The thousands of New Yorkers are waking up under a state of emergency following yesterday's heavy downpours.
That's right. While most of the impact certainly felt across the Hudson Valley, emergency management officials warning residents across the 5 boroughs of flash floods that could be life-threatening for anybody living in those basement apartments. Joining us this morning to talk about that and more is Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine with the very latest. Good morning to you. Welcome
to the new studio.
Hazel.
Great to be in the new studio.
Yeah, for some reason I feel like you've been here before, but here we go. So, let's talk about this, right? Because we're waking up this morning to such amazing images from Orange and Rockland counties, but it still is reflective of what can happen here in our area, too. We've seen flooding like this before in New York City. What is the latest here in Manhattan, especially for basement apartments?
We learned the hard way that in this era of climate change, flooding can come fast and intense, and particularly people who are in basement apartments are vulnerable. So we've instituted a better system now to get the word out, to alert people. And last night, emergency management in New York sent out the word to people in basement apartments, move to a higher floor.
Yeah.
It turned out that most of the worst flooding was actually north of the city. But I think it was a good exercise for us. We're going to have to do this now on a regular basis. The people who live in the basement apartments are vulnerable. They tend to be lower income, immigrant families, and we have to protect them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what more can be done, though?
Well, I think we did the right thing by being cautious and alerting them, but ultimately, we need to improve the safety of those apartments. Many of them are technically not legal dwelling units, and there's been a big push afoot to legalize those units, and that would require putting in safety features like a second means of egress, etc. Unfortunately, Albany didn't succeed at passing that legislation in this session, and that remains an important to-do item for the purpose of housing and safety as well.
You know, Borough President, I want to pivot now to the big topic of crime in New York City, right? And specifically what we saw unfold at a CVS in Midtown last week, this deadly encounter, right? And now there's been this increase in thefts really since 2021 within stores like CVS, Walgreens, Duane Reade's across the city, grand larceny up 50% over the last 2 years. So what's being done to address petty larceny? What's being done to address this very issue?
Well, this is just a heartbreaking tragedy. The loss of a life at the CVS, emblematic of a larger challenge we have. The good news is that in the last year, petty larceny is actually down slightly, citywide down 2%. Better trend in Manhattan, down probably more like 7 or 8%. So we are making some progress. There's really multiple.
So you're saying it's down, but the NYPD said that petty larceny is up 50%.
I believe that would be since pre-pandemic. Okay. We'll check those stats, but I think we've had a little bit of progress in the past year. We have some people who are part of a broad network, really organized crime, that are taking in large amounts of merchandise and then reselling it, and we need to disrupt those networks. There's just nothing sympathetic about these folks. These are really career criminals. We also have people who are suffering with addiction and often are stealing to feed their addiction. We can't tolerate that for sure, but I think it requires a different approach. The individual who lost his life at the CVS in Midtown appeared to be someone who was in the grips of addiction, not part of a broader professional network. These are complicated challenges. We have to go at them at all levels. Obviously, policing is part of the solution, but in the case of someone who's suffering with addiction, it's also getting them the treatment that they need to break out of this cycle.
Right. I mean, overall crime, though, in the city has gone down. Former Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell has stepped down, and now we have interim Mr. Edward Caban in place right now. Have you had conversations with him, and would you like to see him take over the role permanently?
Well, actually, there is good news in the big picture. Shootings down 25% this year. That's major progress. Homicides down as well, not as much. We're seeing some increases still. Car theft, particularly, we've seen the numbers go up, which is disturbing. But I've gotten to work with now acting Commissioner Caban over the past year and a half because he was in the role of deputy commissioner. So he's no stranger to us. And he was very much out in communities. I saw him out in the street a lot. And I like that in the commissioner. I like someone who's engaged, who's not just sitting in their office. So from my perspective, I'm thrilled that he's in this role. and I look forward to working with him.
All right, I want to talk about the migrant crisis. It continues to be a central issue for so many, and of course, Manhattan really at the center of it all. Mayor Adams and the city controller, they seem to be at odds over funding, of course, and whether or not Controller Brad Lander should go to D.C. That's a conversation for a different day. When you look at the budget, though, and the totality, do you think it goes far enough in addressing the migrant crisis, and what would you like to see?
I like to start out every conversation on this topic with a clear statement that the migrants are going to be great for New York City.
Yeah.
Just like every other wave has helped us grow and become more dynamic. These young families, they want to work. I've spoken to many of them. It's the first question, how do I work?
Yeah.
We need that. In the meantime, they have need for help with housing and food and schools, and we have to provide them. We should provide them that. But the federal government should be helping us cover that cost. And we're getting very little in the way of funding from them, and that's not right.
Yeah.
And we need to push harder to get reimbursement for those expenses. I'm a little disturbed to see one development over the weekend, which we're no longer providing a bus from the Port Authority where people arrive after a long trip to the Roosevelt Hotel, which is where they're doing the processing. That, to me, seems like you're saving pennies relatively, and people need that help after a long trip to get to the processing center. So I'd like to see that fixed. But in general, my #1 priority is we need more help from the federal government.
Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, thanks so much for coming in and joining us here in our new studio.
Hey, are you
Good
guys
to
on
see.
Threads yet? You
No.
too?
I was just
We were
going to
gonna
ask you that.
Oh, I am all over it.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
100 million already. It is amazing. There's no trolls. It's a positive dialogue. You got to be there.
Yeah, but is it user friendly? I mean, I feel like it's
Absolutely.
just another thing for me to download.
No. It's smooth. It's easy. Just do it.
But you're not abandoning Twitter.
I'm phasing out. I got to be
Wow.
honest.
Okay.
Yes. It's just been overrun by trolls and
Yeah.
spammers. It's hard to have a good dialogue. Elon Musk is spreading venom everywhere. I want a healthier place for a dialogue. So far, Threads is it.
All right, well, good to know.
Good to know. We'll have to go find you there. 'cause
Do
you're
it.
going to be putting updates out there. All right.